Hey guys, so today I have a Plaguefall 18 key for you. We've gotten close to timing in 18 quite a few times now actually, but we've had like one small thing go wrong and it just killed the key. This dungeon's not super forgiving in a couple wings if you die at the end of it, and then you have to run all the way back through. So that's one thing. But the other reason why I wanted to share this today is because we have some really cool Death Knight tech in here. I think you guys will really enjoy it, and let's just hop right into it. So today we have a Pug Hunter, and our monk is actually on a Frost Death Knight today. So I'll be talking a little bit about that, but let's just dive into the first pack. I usually pop wings and aura on this to deal with the tantrums, but it's actually because it's tyrannical and also the fact that we have a hunter who can de-enrage. This pack really wasn't that scary, and I probably overcommitted some CDs. I think I could have gotten away with this with just using aura and toll, but since the first pack, you don't really want it to go bad, and I probably should have saved wings for the boss because it is tyrannical. This is a very long boss fight, and it hits kind of hard. So we just dive right into this. I'm just going to open up, try to do some damage, heal up my tank as much as possible. This is a hard fight because the necrotic stacks kind of go up really fast. You got to be careful here, so don't be afraid to pop cooldowns. I popped sack early on my tank because he had the mortal strike debuff in addition to necrotic strike, so it was really just going to make stuff harder than it needs to be. I did end up bubbling, and I wish I bubbled while I was sacking, but I got greedy and I held it in the first place because I was like, oh, he's not going to take that much damage, right? And between me taking my own damage and then the tank damage as well, I really should have just bubbled to negate it because now I had to heal through it. And I didn't have wings because I had popped it on the trash. So that was one little mistake that I had. We're fine, but this is kind of an intensive fight to heal. It's long. And like right there, you're seeing, I'm checking to make sure I have the right set on because I saw that my mastery is really high. And I realized that I'm in my raid set. I'm not in my Mythic Plus set. I try to have my verse at about 22, 23%. And as you could see in my weak aura, I'm at 13.8. And I was like, oh, that's why I'm getting hit so hard. Yeah, great. I'm running mastery in a key. That's not awesome. I was doing some sludge fist progression right before this, and I forgot to change my set. So lesson learned. But anyway, back to this key. So yeah, just try to stay spread out with the debuff. Heal up what you can. I don't know why I'm necessarily taking this much damage. I'm guessing just because it's an 18 tyrannical key, but I really felt like I was getting nuked here, and I didn't feel like I was like standing in anything. I think it's just a combination of the bolts going off and it being tyrannical. So just watch for that. Like, don't think that this is a pushover boss. I wish we were able to group the mods a little bit better so I'd get more value out of my Shield of the Righteous and also Cleave for the other classes as well. But this is kind of a hard boss to tank, so I'm not necessarily blaming anybody. I'm just saying, I know I've seen this done in like MDI, and somehow they're able to keep these things pretty well grouped as well as actually pulling the first two packs onto this, and they just nuke it. It's actually insane. I saw it in an MDI group kill this entire first platform in like a minute and a half. So listen, we're not at that level, and I'm not saying that we do that, but there's always ways that you can look at it and find new ways to optimize your route, speed things up. And I think as our group, our next biggest hurdle is going to be starting to double and triple pull things and get better at that, because we're at the key level now where we don't have bad DPS and like we're just meeting the timers. So what can we do to speed this up? Get more value out of things like Combust or Pillar of Frost, Wild Spirits, Avatar and Blade Storm combos. Those are the things that we really need to start stepping up to progress and start timing 19s and 20s and maybe even higher than that. So we're aware of that, and this is probably one of the last few keys that we're going to be doing with our older method of pulling. We had like a chat. We were like, okay, how can we take the next step up now? We worked on using DPS cooldowns on Prideful. Like, what's going to get us to the next step? And we think that that's what's going to help us out. But let's talk about the DK tech a little bit. So the reason why we brought the Death Knight and not the Monk is because there are quite a few mobs in here that the DK can mind control and not only just do a ton of damage to bosses, but also help us with prideful spawns. And we can get the pridefuls exactly where we want them. So I'll try to point out where we MC the mobs while we're going through, because I don't remember them off the top of my head, but keep a lookout for it. And also, AMZ is really helpful on Pridefuls as well, so I will definitely not complain about having that. So for these guys, you can freedom yourself, and then you can just stay in melee. You don't have to worry about the chains. I don't know why I, like, ran out. I think I, like, panicked for some reason. I just did Sludge Fist prog, like I said earlier, so I see chains, I panic. This hallway's kind of spoopy, actually. So, my tank ran ahead, which is fine. Um, we're going through the issue is that he's at so many stacks in necrotic, and I'm, like, not even near him. So, I just sack him as soon as I get in line, and I believe I just bubble here because I'm just like, "Oh my god, we're taking so much damage." Oh, no, we aim Z'd. Let's see what we do here. Oh, I aured. Okay, and then I bubbled, yeah. So, truth be told, I think I overcommitted with the aura because, like, nobody else ended up taking damage. And aura would be actually very useful on this next ad right here, but, Monday night quarterback. It's okay, though, because I do have Toll, so it's not the end of the world. And I should have saved it there. I should have just used it during the Soulstorm. I have an issue that I need to work on, which is when I panic, I just press buttons instead of like taking an extra second to think about it. And I know that the Soulstorm's coming, right? But I still press the button. So and that's something that like that's just gonna take practice and gameplay. That's I could talk about all I want. I could look at these VODs and review it and be like, okay, this was bad, but I need to actually do it to get better. So for our route here, we will be spawning Prideful on this first platform. Word of the wise, do not let the bone spears go off because uh we've killed many 18 TOPs because we got one bone spear off towards the end of the platforms, and it's like you lose like 2 minutes just trying to get back to that platform after a wipe. So do not miss the bone spears. Now, as a pally, you do have 2 forms of CC that will work on them, so you can use the Blinding Light and the Hammer of Justice. And now, actually, I'm going to go back for 1 second. We didn't spawn the Prideful there because we MC'd something. And so it's actually going to come through the portal with us, and it's going to snap right here. And then we're going to spawn the Prideful here and use it for this pack. So, like I said earlier, this is the reason why we're bringing the Death Knight, because we can force the Pridefuls where we want them. So as you see, this Bone Magus or Magus just popped up here because it snapped from another platform. And now we're going to kill it, spawn the Prideful, and use the Prideful for this pack because it's kind of spoopy. Which is kind of cool tech. And we do this a few times throughout the dungeon as well. We have never tested it before, so, or at least to this extent. So we did kind of go in with a little bit of a excitement factor, being like, okay, is this actually going to work? Do these mobs snap? Like, let's find out. And I'm glad that it worked out in our push key. So this was actually a really well optimized run, in my opinion. Obviously, things can always be better, and that's why we're here to learn. But it was really cool seeing this tech work out, in my opinion. And props to Brit2 over here for gearing up his DK and getting good at it. So yeah, again, with this pack, just make sure the Bone Spears are getting interrupted. We placed the AMZ down to help with the volleys and the bolts. I don't actually know exactly what killed my mage there. I forgot to look it up at the end of the run, but I think it was a combination of a bolt going off and the debuff and just stuff just getting out. So I ended up trying to res him. And does this one go off? Yeah, this one went off. Cool. Later, I think, or in another key, I had one, and it got canceled at like the very last, like 0.1 second. It was really triggering. So we're gonna kill this pack off to the left here. We still have Prideful, and we're just gonna go on through the portal. Well, now with this route, we do get the small platform with the 2 knockoffs. It's after this one, actually. Sorry. We get another Bone Reaver double mages here. And so we're gonna kill this real quick. I like to pop, sometimes I like to pop aura on this if I feel like I have a lot of melee that don't run out immediately. Bone spikes, definitely watch those because they will one-shot you, especially on fortified weeks. So, as melee, just another thing you have to look out for. Makes our lives a little bit harder as a holy paladin. But again, it's not too bad. You have tools. If something's about to go off, you can Hodge or Blinding Light, make use of that. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, this is pretty standard. There's not too much to talk about here. I would like to say shout out to our hunter that we pugged randomly, and he actually did really well. We got really lucky with pugs tonight. We ended up pugging a warrior for another key too, and we missed timing a plus 18 by 5 seconds, which was 1 death. in the entire run. That was kind of upsetting, but he did really well outside of that. And yeah, props to this hunter. Nice to pug. We've also just found that when we pug people, we just learn so much about the dungeons that we didn't already know, whether it be a route change, some weird obscure tech, boss mechanics, like ways to deal with them. So we do enjoy pugging occasionally, even though I do obviously like my consistency. So yeah, this is the double Deathwinds platform that I was talking about earlier. It actually seems a lot scarier than it actually is. I mean, dodging those are really not that hard. Once you get knocked off a couple times, you really start to look out for those. I will say that the debuff hits pretty hard, especially on Fortified Week. So there are some times where I need to pop an extra cooldown there. It's okay to do that because even though this boss also has really nasty cooldowns, on a Fortified Week, the boss ones are pretty easily handled. Now, vice versa, on a Tyrannical Week, you really want to save your cooldowns for this because it actually gets really intense, and you'll see here. But before we get to the boss, we once again use our Bone Mage's tech where we MC'd something earlier in the dungeon on one of the platforms. Now we're going to spawn our Prideful here instead of on the other platform that we just came from, which is how our route has always been. But again, because we were able to take advantage of the MC tech, we can spawn the Pride where we want it, when we want it, and really maximize the uptime of this on the Tyrannical bosses. Now, I don't personally find that the TOP bosses in this dungeon are really, really hard. I think the trash in this dungeon is actually way harder than the bosses. Fortified Weeks, I don't like running this place. On Tyrannical, the only scary fight in this, in my opinion, is the one that's about to come up because the debuffs are hard to handle and you really need to manage your cooldowns well as a Holy Paladin at least to be able to heal through them. And depending on what your comp is too, some of your DBS can handle the debuffs a little bit better than others. So definitely communicate and be like, hey, when you get this, like, call out when you dispel who you're dispelling and tell the other person, say, pop a cooldown. It's also another reason why I track things. So, for example, the debuffs on the tank and ones on the hunter. The tank, especially Demon Hunter, can handle this debuff a lot better than the DPS. So I never cleanse the tank, and then I always cleanse the other DPS. And because the cleanse is almost near instant, they don't have to pop any defensives for that. For this debuff, this actually gets really scary. So I LOH Sev here, and he still keeps taking damage. So I end up sacking him and just pumping heals into him and keeping him alive. I think he said something bugged out. I'm not sure what the issue was, but you always have to watch because I do find that this fight is kind of buggy, and this is just not one that you want to wipe to. So save wogs for the debuffs. Make sure you cleanse. Don't be afraid to sack bubble if you have to. Do whatever you can to survive because this fight's entirely on the healer, and obviously your DPS have to do the mechanic correctly. But I see that the hunter had turtle here, and my DK didn't have any defensive, so I cleansed the DK, and the hunter popped turtle, even though I don't actually think turtle helps with that. Now that I'm looking back at it, that was the thought process. But he also had exil, so it was like, even if it doesn't work, he still has his own heal. So yeah, we ended up doing that, and we're saving AMZ to use on one of the upcoming mechanics as well. I believe it is the next round. I'm not sure. But yeah, once again, the magic debuff went on the tank and the DPS, so just cleanse the DPS and don't even worry about it. Pump as much damage as you can as well, but remember, you do need to pool some holy power for these debuffs because if you hesitate at all, like if somebody gets a debuff and you're at 0 holy power, it's actually kind of nasty. I do find this boss to be quite hard to heal. Especially if you're not paying attention, you're not ready for it. But yeah, I think AMZ should be coming up pretty soon for one of these mechanics. AMZ is a great cooldown. So if you're running with a Death Knight, use it, take advantage of it and use it, especially on prides. I usually have them AMZ at about 50%. So, okay, I guess we didn't. I think what happened was we were going to use it on this boss, and then it just ended up working out in a way where we didn't have to. So we saved it and said, we'll just use it on the Pride then that's coming up. I think that's what ended up happening. So, okay, I think in this next wing, does he grab one off the bat? Let's see. Let's watch the DK, because I think he does MC something. No, maybe it's further down in the hallway. I'm not sure. Regardless, I do like wingsing this pack because there's just a lot of debuffs that go out, And I also like to just do damage because this decaying filth is there's just a lot of stuff you have to stop, and the chances are it's not all gonna get stopped unless you're like really, really on top of it. And remember, we do have a pug in here, so it gets a little sketch. I just pop wings. The next pack after that, I don't necessarily feel like I need wings, and it will be back up in time for the pride. So again, you know, don't really sit on wings. It's not that long of a cooldown. It's only 2 minutes. You also get so many free wings along the way if you're running Awakening, which you should be running by this point. So, it feels a little less bad to just pop a wings. Even if you end up wasting the wings for whatever reason, like that's still kind of shitty, but it's like, okay, well maybe I'll get a free proc. I mean, there's been times where on prides I just didn't have wings because I had to pop a wings for the pack before something went wrong, whatever it is. And then I end up getting 3 wings procs, and I get like 30 seconds of wings for free on a prideful. And I tell guys like, don't pop defensives, you're fine, don't worry about it. Otherwise, this wing isn't too bad as far as healing. This pack's, things just have to get interrupted. Things have to get CC'd. If a kick or 2 is missed, it does hurt a lot, so be ready. But I mean, I also don't think the kicks and stuff in these packs are actually really hard to get, so you shouldn't have too many problems here. That said, I have a couple people taking some damage here, and it's just because these guys jump around. It's kind of annoying. You can't really avoid the jumps with our group comp at least. We can grip him in, we can stun him, we can do whatever we want, but eventually they're still going to find their way out onto our range, so just gotta heal them up a little bit. Um, yeah, the withered discharge hurts, and the decaying filth. I think decaying filth actually takes priority as far as the kick priority. So focus on that. Help Hodge or blind those because they can be blinded. But you have to watch also with the inspiring week. So hold them out. Maybe just CC the inspired mob or just nuke the inspired mob. So we're actually going to skip this guy here, and at the very, very last second, I think our mage pulled aggro, so what we did was we told him to die, and then we were going to was it the mage or the demon hunter? Somebody pulled. Oh, it was the demon hunter. So, yeah, we're just gonna tell him to die, and I will res him, and we will be good to go. Sorry, Seb, I could not remember who accidentally pulled. Yeah, the only, like, shitty part about the demon hunter pulling is just the fact that his cheat death proc, so now he no longer has that for a bit. Which is unfortunate, but the aggro radius on that is kind of wonky. So you want to hug the wall and like wait until he's far enough away. Do not take the chance or invis pot it. But I don't think you need to invis pot. Like once you see his pathing, it's not too bad. So here, I'm going to fear the diseased horror with turn evil, and I recently found out that that spell works on more than like the mobs you would actually think it works on. So definitely make use of that. But yeah, I'm gonna fear that guy out because he's inspired, and that'll let us now interrupt the decaying filths and the withering discharge, which I said in the other hallway, like they're pretty nasty, especially on fortified weeks. So take advantage of your turn evil, man. I mean, you have Hodge and you have Blinding Light, sure, but turn evil it'll just straight up remove this guy from combat for like 30 seconds. You could run Repent too, but Repent doesn't always work on everything, so it depends on the dungeon. I also just prefer Blinding Light because I feel like I just get more use out of it. But what's nice about Fear is that not only does it CC them, but it makes them run away. You just have to be careful and make sure it doesn't pull any extra mobs. Otherwise, that'll be really, really bad. But I held wings here because I really want to use it for the prideful, and I don't necessarily need it for that pack when I have the CC out. On fortified weeks, I tend to really plan out my wings a little bit better, but on like tyrannical weeks, I get a feel for the packs that like really suck, and then other than that, I just use them on bosses. I don't like I still try to rotate them, and I will always make sure that it's up for the boss. But honestly, like helping nuke pridefuls like lately has just been like my top priority. So yeah, here comes the prideful. I try to wait a couple seconds before I pop the wings, just generate a little bit of holy power first, because we don't really need the wings at the beginning of the pride. But we're actually just nuking this guy. The combination between my Death Knight's minion MC, my wings, and Pillar of Frost, I mean, this thing's just getting annihilated, which is nice because I like to DPS the prides. It's more fun than healing the prides for sure. So if you can take advantage of a Death Knight in this run for things just like this, I mean, it's pretty simple tech, but I mean, look how fast that died, and we really didn't commit much, which leaves us, combust for this pack or combust for boss, whatever you want to do. And I'm sure you can even manipulate it so that you spawn Pride right before this boss. These guys that jump around are really annoying. I would suggest trying to Hodge one of them if you can. These packs make me miss my Resto Druid, which I've been playing a lot of lately, and I actually really enjoy, but having Vortex for stuff like that just, like, speeds that pack up so much. But, we combusted it, so they kinda got blown up anyway. This boss on Tyrannical does hurt the tank quite a lot, so your tank always has to have some type of cooldown, some type of DR up. We rotate through shield, sack, defensives, sheet deaths, like, we make use of everything here. I usually sack early because if this is a long fight, I may get sacked back up. It's only a 2-minute cooldown. It's the Hateful Strike that you really need to watch out for, and hopefully nobody else gets hit by the hooks. And remember, you do have bubbles, so if you're gonna get hit by a hook, you have a little bit of a cheat button there. You can get away with it. Your bad mechanics, and I think I use it at some point in this fight. You also have LOH, which will help you with Hateful Strike. I used it right there, except I don't think that was because of Hateful Strike. I think my tank got hit by a hook, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, that is a tank cooldown. It only helps if your tank doesn't get one-shot by the ability, but, at this point, your tanks are not going to be getting one-shot by Hateful Strike, so, just be ready to use it the second he takes the damage. I like to help out DPSing with this when I can. A little tip is those little guys that run around, when they get low HP, you can use Hammer of Wrath on them, get some free holy power. Hammer of Wrath doesn't cost you any mana. See right there, a bubble. You could use it at range, and it'll, it's a free holy power. Why not? Another thing you can do too is if things are kind of looking pretty safe, just save some wogs for the Hateful Strike, because even with a cooldown, it will still do a lot of damage. And as I've said in my previous videos too, getting used to pooling Holy Power and pooling the wogs for when the damage comes out that you know is going to come out, it really just makes all of the difference between a good paladin and a mediocre paladin. And I'm still working on that myself, so I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, I'm perfect with that. Like, no, I'm getting better with it, but it's a mini game in and of itself, because you don't want to sit on too much holy power and not generate, because then you lose out on holy power over the length of the fight. So you really need to be strong with it and smart, and see like when you need to kind of manage your resources in the correct way. Because Paladin is also a healer where when you fall behind, you really feel it. It's not, especially if you're playing Venthyr and you're not playing Kyrian, at least Kyrian every minute. It's like, what are the chances of you falling super far behind every minute? That's fine. More than once a minute, I mean, you might have other problems. It's not necessarily always your fault. But yeah, that wing's not too bad. So now we're going to head into the Zav wing. This is actually, for me, this is the worst wing. I really hate it. Even on Tyrannical weeks, the trash in this wing is honestly terrible. So yeah, you really gotta watch for that. But we have this diseased horror still, and what's funny is that it's actually casting meat shield on itself. So we were waiting for the meat shield to fall off so that we could stop controlling it and then do DPS on it. Because we're gonna kill it and we're gonna MC something later. So yeah, I don't have too much to talk about in this section of the dungeon, but I will say I don't necessarily think TOP is really bad on Tyrannical. I do think that one boss that I was talking about earlier is kind of hard, but I don't really think the rest of the dungeon's that bad. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because I've only been doing like 18s and 19s, so maybe my opinion will change. But moving forward, this wing actually is hard on Tyrannical anyway, because jagged quarrels can hit really hard. Make sure you're CCing those and stopping them as much as possible. This pack's not bad because there's only one Arbalist, but later in the dungeon there's a couple in one pack and you really have to be careful. So yeah, we're just going to go through here. Be careful. These like little mini bosses that are throughout the dungeon are, or at least throughout this wing rather, are actually kind of hard. On even on non-fortified weeks, and you just have to watch for that. Make sure you're CCing that as much as possible. So we actually had our DK CC one of the mobs here. It's that archer in the back, and you see me healing it a little bit. I healed it a little bit more than I probably should have because we will be killing this. I just healed it up so it wouldn't just die to some random ass bullshit. To be honest, I shouldn't have healed it that much, but that is the reason why or you see me targeting it. I'm just trying to throw a couple heals out. Um, it'll just help us kill this mob a little bit faster, and then we don't have to worry too much about slowing down in this wing, and also it will help us later, I believe, with the pride. So as you're kind of seeing, there's a little bit of a rhythm here and a little bit of a cycle, ceasing some mobs and then releasing them when it is time to spawn a prideful. This is not that case though, because we are spawning pride without it, but we will be using the archer to actually help us kill the pride, and you'll see this guy's just getting nuked. Like like I think it ended up doing like 5 to 6% of the DK's damage like on this mob. We looked it up later. It's actually insane. Correct me if I'm wrong, Loki, but I think that's what happened. So I mean, hey, listen, I mean, we're gonna kill that anyway, right? Like, why not just use it to our advantage, get some extra damage? That stops me from having to pop a bunch of extra cooldowns, right? Like, I don't think I pop anything except for Toll on this, which is pretty good for an 18 Pride. I mean, that's really not that bad. I didn't Wings and I didn't Aura, so, as much as you can save on the Prides, I guess, like, without getting too greedy, you might as well just go for it. Again, especially because this wing is so toxic to the tank. Okay, so this mob itself isn't bad, but this hallway is bad. And this is the one with the double arbalist or 3 arbalists. I don't know. But we do have to watch for the jagged quarrels. On fortified weeks, it just one-shots people, so you might as well get the practice in on a tyrannical week. Get the practice. There's also a bleed that goes out. I think you can bop it because it's just a regular bleed, but I'm not going to waste a bop on something that I can just kind of heal through. And I'd rather save the bop for my mage when he's going to combust this next pack. I don't know if I do it in this dungeon, but I do know that it's useful and I don't have to worry about healing him. He won't get attacked by a quarrel. I can just focus on healing everybody else. And honestly, the bleed doesn't tick for that much, so it's like not actually that scary. Okay, so for this next pack, there's 2 Arbalists. These are the ones, again, that do the Jagged Quarrels. You really need to watch these and help your DPS CC, interrupt, do whatever to stop these Jagged Quarrels from going off because they actually do a lot of damage. I just pop Wings because I'm not screwing around. I'll be honest with you, if this was fortified, the way we handled this pack, we probably would have wiped. It wasn't the cleanest, but in our defense, we did not have our warrior that we normally run with. And he wasn't this hunter was not in calm, so it was a little bit harder, but the jagged quarrels really do hurt and they really are punishing. So I'm sure on tyrannical on higher level keys this will get you, so that's something that we can always work on. I'm sure in pugs on 15s it probably gets pretty nasty, not gonna lie. I would not want to. I don't really like pugging TOP for that reason unless I'm with at least one other person that I know can help me with the jagged quarrels. But anyway, we're going to move this boss up to the top of the stairs because this will spawn Prideful, and so we want to maximize as much of the Prideful buff as possible on the next boss because this next boss is actually kind of tricky. So, you want to make sure you have some cooldowns lined up for not only the Prideful, but also for the boss because you will wipe if the banners are not dead. Again, it depends on your team comp, but like, how is a DK going to be able to get out of the slow? I mean, I have 1 freedom and I have to use it on myself because I have to stay alive. So you gotta watch with the banners. So I told my team, I said, when there's a double DPS fighting in the arena and a banner comes down, on the second time that happens, I will pop Wings and a potion. And I end up actually screwing it up, which you will see. But the point is that you want to go into it with a plan. You don't want to just figure shit out like too late and then wipe, because again, TOP is not the most forgiving dungeon as far as the timer. And I only say that in the sense that I don't think the timer is necessarily really, really tight. It's just if you wipe near the end of a wing, it takes you so long to get back. The timer, like I've personally found on these like mid-range keys, you can mess up like once or twice and it'll be tight, but it's still doable. But it really just depends on how much time you lose in, the teleport wing, in this wing. It could be a little brutal, but anyway, I'm trying to hold as much as possible for this. I do Divine Toll because, like, that's a 1 minute cooldown, whatever. But we're going to go into this with the Pride, and we're just going to try to blow this up. So, as you see, we pop Combust right off the start. We're also going to pop Pillar. Brutal combo. So brutal combo is very brutal to your tank. You definitely want to make sure that you communicate with him and make sure you have some type of mitigation up for that. And it can get kind of tricky if he's not topped off and then you get a banner right there. We're not a banner, sorry, the slam, because the slam actually does a lot of AoE damage. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to time my aura so that I can kind of see where the overlap happens on the mechanics and try to maximize the most out of that as possible. But you can't always do that. It's a little bit of RNG. But and you only get one use out of it, so really it's gonna be kind of hard to maximize it. But anyway, so this banner, we're fine. I'm not popping any cooldowns on this one. We got our DPS up pretty quickly, and the tank had some cooldowns up for brutal combo, so that was pretty easy. I did pop aura there, just to try to mitigate some damage. Again, I'm not trying to pop my wings here because I'm trying to save it for the DPS purpose on the banner. So getting the aura in there isn't that bad of an idea. I forgot that we had a Death Knight, so I started to battle res, and then he's like, no, I have battle res, so I'm just gonna do that. And I said, great. So here on this banner, I accidentally popped wings. I wasn't paying attention. I had said earlier that I wanted to save the wings for when the DPS are down and we have to kill the banner without 2 DPS. So at first I was kind of upset, but I'll be honest with you, I needed the healing here, and apparently we needed the damage for that banner anyway because we just barely made it in time. So looking back, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but you do want to stick to the plan as much as possible, and it's okay to deviate if you're deviating with a purpose. If you're deviating due to a mistake, and you're just like, oh shoot, like I just randomly popped wings here, like that's not good. You don't want to waste things, but anyway, I sack my tank here to help with the brutal combo. I'm trying to pump as much damage as possible into this banner, which my tank hunts because he's Night Fae. And it's a little close here, I'm not gonna lie. You have tools, right? If something like that happens, you can sack someone, you can bubble, try to freedom someone, do whatever you can. But on Tyrannical, I mean, I don't really think Sack's going to save anyone, and to be honest, I think Sack is better used on the tank anyway. We have 3 battle reses left. You might just have to take an L. Like, just let one person die, and then his battle res, just make sure that one person is in you. I mean, the boss was almost dead anyway, so it's not like that big of a deal, but, just keep that in mind, where if that banner doesn't die, there's a chance that something's going to have to happen on your end, but anyway, we're going to the final boss here. We got 5 minutes left. It's pretty comfy. We're feeling good about this, and this boss historically has given us a lot of problems with the boars, but the last few times we ran it, we've been pretty okay with it actually. So we came up with a good system that works for us so that the DPS don't panic. And so we'll, just mark the tank and be like, stand on the tank, and the tank will be responsible for it. I do think now that we've done this dungeon a lot more, because honestly, prior to the last couple of 18s that we've done, this is probably one of our least run dungeons. So we didn't really have a lot of experience with the timings and with coming up with our own strategies that work for this boss. You might be wondering, where did this ancient captain come from? This was MC'd by our Death Knight, and he snapped it up here, and then he re-MC'd it. So yeah, you can snap mobs up from below and then use it on the boss fight. And honestly, it's really helpful because it's tyrannical. You take the extra damage, why not? We already had the forces that we needed, so it's not like we had to worry about spawning prideful. But I mean, you probably could come up with a route where you MC and then get it so that you could spawn a prideful on this boss. But at least at the key levels that we're doing, we don't necessarily feel that we need the prideful for this boss. We find it more valuable on the boss we just did. So that's that. As far as dealing with this AoE mechanic, I usually just Divine Toll it, and then sometimes I'll pop Aura depending on what's going on in other people's HP. I think I actually ended up wasting a cooldown later because I expected more damage to come out and it didn't. But just kind of keep an eye on that and try to maximize what you can with Aura. It will be up one more time before this key ends. I just don't know if we'll still be fighting the boss or not. But I pop wings here, thinking, oh yeah, I'll just be able to heal through the damage. But we took like no damage, so I was like, oh my god, all right, I guess I'm just gonna DPS. Pop a potion. Actually, I didn't pop a potion because it's on cooldown. But if it wasn't on cooldown, I would pop a potion there. And then just heal everybody up. We AMZ here for the transition to help minimize some damage that we're going to take. And then, as you see, the boars are about to spawn. And so you're going to watch most people stack on the tank. Like, I'm pretty comfortable in myself to be able to dodge these things, so I don't worry about that as much as I am just getting myself into a position to heal. I know I won't get hit, and if things were to go wrong, I mean, I still have bubble, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes I start to panic because people are getting hit by a lot of stuff, so I just bubble and say, "Screw it, I just need to hit the boss." But yeah, I just popped Toll again during the intermission. I mean, Toll's pretty much enough to deal with that even on Tyrannical. We've got uh we've got the Dark Devastation overlap with the boars, and you see I popped my bubble there. Um I didn't need to bubble, honestly, but it was more I pre-bubbled because the boss is almost dead, and if I had to sack somebody, I didn't know how much damage it was actually gonna do to me. So it was more like, let me preemptively pop in, and then, you know, if I have to sack, at least I know the sack's not gonna kill me. But anyway, that is our TOP 18 run. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned at least a little bit from it, and I will see you in the next video.